Okay, yeah. So the next topic is why are we not animals? Yeah, so you're going to get a lot of scientists and people in general. They're going to say, yeah, we're animals. We're animals. We're just in the animal kingdom. We're just at the top of the animal kingdom. We're at the top of the echelon of the animal kingdom. We're at the pinnacle. So but we're animals. We have the ability to do many things that many animals can't, but we're still animals. We're just a little different because we're at the top of the whole kingdom of animals. Uh, and it should be easy to see that in the way that we're similar to them, sentient beings that they are, we're the same similar sentient type of being. They have legs and limbs to walk with. We have limbs that we use to walk and do things. They have head, eyes, ears, nose, mouth. We have head, ears, nose, mouth. Same senses that they have. Um, they can feel stuff. We can feel stuff. They can hear and see stuff. They hear, see stuff. They do it. We do it. They eat, they taste stuff. I mean, they don't have maybe the sophisticated taste as us. They might not be able to talk, but they make sounds like we make sounds, and kind of look like them. I mean, we're not like the insect world or anything like that. They're sentient beings too, but they don't just look like much like the other kind of animals and structure that we have either. Scientists will say, well, if you will dissect, they'll dissect the animal and say, oh, it's so similar to the cell structure of the human. So you have to put them in the same category. You're animals. I mean, you're animals, they're animals. We don't look like plants. I mean, we're not plants. We're not rocks. We don't look like anything in the mineral kingdom. We're sentient beings, animals. We're able to walk and roam the earth and see and hear, feel. Uh, you know, what we have going for us is the same thing that the animals have going for them. So we're similar in that way, same, and in the same category. And so I say no. And they go, what do you say no for? Can't you see the resemblance, the logic that they're making by saying that it's the same structure, cell structure even, and the same kind of beings, the senses and all these things are the same, like similar. And I say, well, how about the fact that that a human can do so much more than an animal can do? I mean, it's a space jump between what a human can do and what an animal can do. And you say, not really. I mean, a man building buildings and building a beaver can build a dam, and some of the animals can do more than we can. They can fly. They have their own power, and some of them they dolphins can communicate with each other in a way that we don't even know how they do it, and that we don't know how to do it like they do it. You have some animals have, yeah, they understand what that how they're communicating. Um, and at the same time, you have like some animals have radar. They a whole bunch of different things that we, just because we have different abilities than they have. Why would you say that we're not just the top of the list of the animals rather than just saying that we're not animals? And I say, well, because the animal are not in the same kingdom as the humans are. He said, kingdom? What's this kingdom stuff you're talking about? Anybody can say kingdom. I'm talking about the real, honest to goodness, the similarities between us, animals, and, what we call humans. It's the same. It's very similar. It's very similar. The similarities there make it that we're in the same category as them. Right? So I said, no, no, no. He said, why you keep saying no? What's your reasoning behind you not saying that we are not in the animal kingdom? And I say, can an animal near what a human can make? Can an animal build a car? Think about what it is to transport himself and then build a car. Can an animal build a computer? Can an animal develop himself to be able to manage to do anything near something like that? Any animal you're talking about on the face of the earth. Can an animal even hope to fashion themselves to do anything to that type of an ability? Now, being that the answer is no, there's a reason for that. There's a reason that there's a gigantic space jump between what animals can do and what humans can do. Like, just think of how the world would look if there were only animals on the earth, and look at it now with the humans. So what I'm trying to say, in the human kingdom, of course, some people say, "Oh, you're talking about some esoteric jargon, talking about kingdom." But we are in a different kingdom, and there's a reason for that. It's just a different way that the spirit manifests. It's the next level of the spirit's manifestation. So any spiritual manifestation in a human kingdom is different than a manifestation in the animal kingdom. You can see it if you look at it that way. The manifestation in the human kingdom is a much more personal manifestation. That's why they call us person. We're persons, individual persons. The words are tremendous, as I say. You're a person. That's a person over there. It's a personality that's different than a personality of an animal. There are no human species, these different species of humans. There's one human race. That's it. See, you have a lion. You have a lion, or a lion, or leopard, or tiger, or the domesticated cat. There's a species. There's a feline species right there. So now that happens to, and also one happens to be a lion, one happens to be a cat, one happens to be a cougar or whatever. But they're in the same species, but they're not the same. So you have some lions. They're going to be the head of that leader. The alpha lion. They're the strongest and one most able to, just be. Just need to show their strength and to show the ability they could overcome any other lion, probably because of that's how they just happen to be that way. And therefore they have more control over all of the females and so you have that type of thing going on in the animal kingdom. Yeah, that's correct. They're trying to say, well, see, you compare that to what's going on in the human kingdom. Yeah, look, you have some people or men that are more aggressive, and the alpha male, and they command more than the average male that doesn't have that aggressiveness and stuff like that. But we're still talking about different kingdoms. We're still not talking about the same type of spiritual manifestation. If we're talking about the the monkeys, look at monkeys. They're really close. My God, look at them. They just the scientists were shown that their DNA is like 98% the same as the human being. So come on. That should more evidence that we're that close to the animal kingdom that there should be no difference. Why are you saying difference? It's not proving anything. The reason why it's not proving anything is because just because the housing of the spirit has manifested, it doesn't necessarily have to be a totally different housing to be a different kingdom. The understanding of what what a monkey can do, and we definitely have many different species of monkeys. We definitely have many different species. A lot of them can use their hands and do different things with tools, even maybe a little bit. And we tried to teach them how to do like sign language, maybe they could do better than things to climbing and all kinds of strength. But with all of that, they can't do anything near what a human can do. They can't figure out like how to build a machine that's going to harvest their food. They can't like even build a cart to cart their food around. They can't do anything like near what human can do. Dolphins, and they're so smart, and they're swimming, and they can communicate with each other, and they breathe air at the same time. At the same time, they have these. Listen, with all that stuff, they can't do anything near what a human can do. Since when has a dolphin created some craft that he's going to get inside and propel himself so he doesn't have to swim, or some kind of a kingdom underneath the sea, so with housings and stuff like that. They can't do anything well, if they hadn't, you're saying, well, maybe if they had the limbs, they would be able to do it and stuff like that. They could possibly do something. The reason why they don't have the limbs is because they're not in the human kingdom. They're not. There's no necessity for them to have anything except what's in their kingdom. The human kingdom doesn't have species in it. The species of the animal kingdom means that the spirituality of that kingdom is spread out among the species. It's hard to consider the personality when you have your spirituality spread off and all of the people and all of the things in that particular species. When you talk the human kingdom, you're not any longer an impersonal animal into now being a personal being, a being that's now able to recognize that it's on the outside of just the regular reality. And not only does it recognize that, but within that recognition, it has the power to create outside of, of its own reality. It can create. It can make something different just by thought and will and ability. Can an animal make something different just by thought, will, or ability? No, they can't. Their thoughts are limited to what their instinctual um mm, wait a minute, let me change my tape, sorry. So as I'm saying, they have the thoughts are limited to what their instinctual callings demand. That's that's all that their ability can really muster. What their instinctual qualities command. So yes, I guess a lion is going to be a predator. He's going to be after anything that he can chase down and kill and eat. He's not going to think about, mm, like I think I might want to, not kill and eat this today. Taking a day off. I'm feeling a little more compassionate towards my fellow animals. You know, you know, I'm in more harmony with the world. Man, I'm in a meditative mood. So, I'm not going to run down anything today. I'm gonna let that rabbit that just passed me just go. Because, yeah, I think that I have a little bit more compassion today. Uh, yeah. Anyway, I'm being a little, off the beat, but I'm kind of just trying to say is that what whatever compassion that animals have, which they do have certain amount of compassion, especially when you're talking about your domesticated animals, pets, and they show affection in many ways, and the other kinds of animals that you have in your corral, they give you an impression that they have feelings. So yeah, we're not going to eliminate those observations, but what we're going to focus on the fact that they are not individualized beings like humans are, and they don't have anywhere near the creative capacity that humans do, and they cannot move themselves very far out of their instinctual calling. They can't move out of that. There's no way. Their will is nowhere near the same as the will of a human. Humans took a while to develop to the state that it has, because even the kingdoms do not just all of a sudden one kingdom and then there's a jump in another kingdom. No. There's different processes over the span of times and evolution, and cast off material from other things to now when they get cast off, now they get picked up by other things, and then they can be able to be creating other things. So, but I'm just saying the bottom line is there's a difference between once you're in the human kingdom. That's why our thought processes are the way that they are, and our creative abilities are the way that they are, and our understanding that there's something outside of ourselves. There is something that we are curious about that's outside of ourselves. We're curious about it. Like, well, what is that? You know, like, as a matter of fact, what am I? What am I? What am I doing here? What is the reason for this? What is this all about? What is the purpose of this? We in the human kingdom have those questions. The animals do not. There's no necessity for them to have that, because the beings that they are, although they are sentient beings just like us, there's no purpose for those types of manifestation of spirit to have that curiosity, questioning in their kingdom. It's not necessary. All they have to do is just go by their instincts. And as I say, there's room for little bits of compassion, little bit of feeling. You know, they can be trained to do certain things that are see amazing sometimes. You train your dog to put on an act. In circus. Circus train all kind of animals to do all kinds of different things. But yeah, but there's that. But it's totally, totally an undercurrent as compared of the creativity in the human kingdom. That's what's important. We are closer, we're getting closer, ever closer to the divine understanding of the creation and the creating of the universe, the creation, and we're getting closer to that understanding. That's what makes us have that gigantic jump, that spastic space jump between that what we are and what they are. They don't have that. We're the ones that wonders. What are the stars out there? What is this world? What makes a plant grow? Why why is a baby born, and when it's born, that what happens to it, and what's the process that makes it grow inside the stomach and go, then get just born, and what is it that I can do with fire? What is it that I can find out about different ways of different forms of power and energy, and how can I convert it into what's going to help me and in this environment that I am, and take these different kinds of powers and work with them, and what is gravity? All of these things that we wonder and experiment and learn. They've learned and they've made into such marvelous, fantastic buildings and structures and inventions and appliances and airplanes and machines and all of this stuff. The animals have absolutely no capacity to even start to imagine any of this kind of stuff. So that is why it's very easy for me to say that we are not animals, because of the way that I'm looking at it. The problem a lot of times is that when we're thinking along the lines of how we should be like acting as humans, we try to inform ourselves from the animal kingdom. We would say, well, the animals do this, and they do this in such a way, and so therefore, it only makes sense that we form ourselves from what they're doing, because in there we see that how predatory they are. So it makes sense that we are also predatory, because we're animals. then we're also predatory, just like they are. Uh, is that yes, you can see how some of them, are superior in the way that they can control other animals because they're the alpha portion of their species, and because they have the strength and the power and they can just overpower anything that comes their way, and that abilities make them the master of the rest of their species in that particular framework. So therefore, if we do that, then we are just mimicking the animals. So that makes a bunch of sense because they're animals, we're animals, and so we're doing it like the animals. So there's no discrepancy. No, we just look it down, see what they're doing, and then if we're doing the same thing and we're animals, where's the discrepancy? Well, the discrepancy is that we're not animals. If we're looking to be informed by something, we shouldn't really be looking down into a kingdom that's under us to be informed by what's going on there. I mean, yes, we can be curious about it. Yes, we can study it and look at it and try to make sense out of how they're doing it and how observe it and say, yeah, so even some good parts out of what we can use out of that. When we see a bird flying, we say, I want to fly too. We use our imagination and we say, okay, we got to build something with wings, and we fly. We hear a bird singing, and we say, oh well, our voice can be used in certain ways too. Next thing you know, we're singing and we're creating like music, the music of the spheres, and that's there for us to use. And next thing we're hearing it from another perspective, and if we hear from other animals, but then we're using our own perspective, and the next thing you know, we have you know masterful classical pieces that and operas and the popular singing and rock and roll, and so because we have the ability to do much more. Now we can be informed by what they're doing, but yeah, that's why I love watching like these karate movies. You see the karate movies, and you say my fighting style is I feel like the crane or the mantis. Yeah, like the tiger, the dragon. It's not even really a dragon, but with your imagination, you can just it can just take you there and make it work for you. And look down and use your imagination to actually create things in your kingdom that is being informed by what you might see in another kingdom. But you shouldn't really be thinking that in that kingdom is going to inform you because you're in a higher kingdom. If you want to really be informed by something, you should try to be looking higher than yourself rather than lower than yourself. Because if you look higher than yourself, then you're looking in the direction that whatever evolution has for you. Evolution is going to make you as a higher being. You're going to make your spiritual manifestation to be of a much higher elemental beauty. So let's not be too focused looking down, and they're like saying, oh, they're predators and they do that. So we should be fighting because they do that because we're also like them. we can if we want to, but if we don't want to, we can create something is better because of the beings that we are, and is going to be better for us as a human personalized species, one human personalized species, no races and foolishness about race and your race, that's your black and your white and your there's only difference is that somehow it developed in different areas, whereas they had to use different ways of development. It's different skin colors or textures of hair, or, even a different look about their face. It's depending on what foods they ate and what the area that they were in they had to just take it from that area. They had to manifest the genes and everything, the processes, the DNA came from where they were, and that's what they were embodying. But they were still human beings, but it had nothing to do with. It doesn't have anything to do with a different species. So the race foolishness is just ridiculous, and you should stop it. Because there's no racism. It's a human race. You want human now different areas, different cultures, and environments, and these things can be pointed to, but we're not talking about any difference between the individual personality, human species. That individuality is so important. We don't have to share our spiritual being with other species. No, it's ours. It's just ours as one human species. That's what the individuality is about. That's what the personality is about. So we can devote ourselves to making that better instead of taking it and making it into some crazy stuff. That person makes you far different than what an animal is. And that understanding that you can be looking up and using your will to look up what's beyond you and what's beyond your species and where you're headed. Yeah, what's beyond your species. There's many in the esoterical thought, that community that say there's the divine kingdom that's above the human kingdom. It consists of masters and different abilities that we don't have, and it can help us. They're helping us with what we're going through, and karma, evolution, and different things. But it's just thoughts. I believe it. There's some people thinking about extraterrestrials, and but let's not go there. Just let's talk about what we are, and then what we have the abilities to do, and the imagination that we have, and the will that we have. Let's go there. Let the laws of the universe take care of themselves. And then we just understand where we are, and we try to study what we're about, because we have the ability to do that. You see, we as humans have the ability to do that. That's what we should be trying to do. We should be trying to say, okay, we have great abilities, we have great will. We have the will, the only will that can affect the planet. The other animals can't affect the planet with their will. That's why the way that we're using our will right now is like ridiculous. It's because we're destroying the planet with our will. We're actually willingly destroying the planet. Not the planet itself, really. The planet will remain, Yeah, yeah. The planet has its own spirituality. You can't destroy me. You can destroy yourself by being silly. You can destroy yourselves and wipe yourselves off. Wait, and have to wait now, come back another way and get back into the human plane so you can develop again. But you're not going to mess up my planetary plane. That's you can't mess that up. You don't have the power. I can correct it when I feel like, whenever I need to do that. That's my ability in the universe. But we just try to understand that we don't want to will ourselves out of existence, because that would be pretty silly when we have the ability to do much more, much better, and have much more, much more intelligence, much more wisdom. But we're not using those things because we're not understanding those things yet on the right level. If we knew that with our will, with our proper thoughts, that we could just wipe out all hunger, we could make the planet pristine, like just like have the greatest atmosphere that it could possibly have all of our water just be like clean and beautiful and wonderful, and have everybody living happily with just everything they want, enough space to be free, and just, if we knew that we could do that, why wouldn't we do that? If we knew, it's because we don't know that we can do it. A lot of people are still we're still in ignorance. So many people are in ignorance. We're trapped. We're trapped of the ignorance of our own creation, and our creation has not been very intelligent. What we've been created is not always all that's intelligent. Like technologically, it's been like awesome, intricate and awesome. Computer, you go around with a phone, you can talk with somebody in another part of the world, and just talking with them, press a button, you talk with them, and you can just, you know, great stuff. It shows the ability of what we have and the ability of our will and of our imagination. But we're not using it to save ourselves as a species. What kind of foolishness is that? We're overpopulating the world. What kind of foolishness is that? We know math. We know math. We know another math. We know enough math to get us from this planet to another planet with another planet and send stuff out to another, like out of the solar system and to someplace else. And we know distance from here to Alpha Centauri. But with all that math, we can't figure out how to balance the population of our planet. That's right. Isn't that ridiculous? It's totally ridiculous. Well, my genome is so important that I have to have like genome around, set my genome around. I need like 15 children, and the book says that you're supposed to be fruitful and multiply. And I can't go against the book, can I? I can't figure out any kind of way to stop the natural nature of the way that that babies are born. Because if I do that, then I'm going against what the book says. And would you come on? I mean, aren't we? Don't we have more intelligence than that? Don't we? Can't we just sit down and say, okay, this is what we need to do to keep the population of the world the way it's supposed to be, and then cut out all the rest of the stuff. Is a ridiculous jargon that would stop us from doing that. And then say, you know what? As far as how we're really going to save this planet, we're just not going to do anything that's going to mess it up. You know, we know what's messing it up. We have the scientists that know what's messing it up, and we know what's messing up. So we're going to reverse everything. We're not going to do anything more than that, and we're going to use our abilities to reverse it. We're going to control the populations. We're not going to have to mess around with nature that much to get food if we know how to manage our population and cultivate our food in a natural way, and so we get the most power and strength out of it. You know, and just because we have this ability to start trying to shift the way that nature does things and stuff like that, we don't have to use that. What good is it? It just we. I'm not saying that we can't do it. There's so many things that we can do. So many things that we have done that's been all kind of crazy. You know, with the technology that we're talking about. You know, yeah, you have yeah. We're not focusing on our minds. How we should, our minds should be making us understand how we should be working together to make the whole of our human species have the comfort and the contentment that it would take would be called a utopia or paradise on the planet. No, but instead we're thinking about, oh no, but I need to get this, I need to get that, I need to get to. You go back to the ego. I need this. You know, my powers has to be more. I can't sacrifice what I need in order to get what you need because you don't even have the same ability that I have to get my ability is much more. I have to exert my ability more because I have it and you don't, and so therefore, now if you want to think that way, you're never going to obtain a balance. You're not even thinking about obtaining a balance. So how are you going to get something that you're not even thinking about? You're not even trying to imagine it. So the only way you get something is that you imagine it and then you use your will to get it. So if you're not imagining it, then you're not going to. How would you get it? You wouldn't. You know, it's not in your perspective, really. You know, you give lip service. You give lip service to it, but if in the real sense, you're not really doing it. Lip service is not the real thought process that takes to do something. So if everybody was always thinking about themselves and their own small little groups in these circles, if we all thought about what would be good for the entirety of the human race, if we all were thinking that way, if we were taught to do that, if we were thinking of doing that, if we were teaching each other from a young age, from wherever, okay, well, this is the kind of way that we're going to be thinking now. We're going to talk all of this ridiculous stuff out because it's not working. It ain't working. We're starting to understand how silly it is, ridiculous a lot of it is. Oh, I have the most toys. I have more toys than you, so I'm better, and I can feel great about that. I'm not even saying that they just always don't make any kind of sense whatsoever. They make sense to the ego, yes, of course it does. But we want to get higher. You see, we have the ability to get higher. We're not animals, we're humans. And humans means that you have the ability to think on a deeper level, understand things, will things in a much more, definitely a much more tangible way to make it actually happen. And so therefore, it just depends on what thoughts that you're creating, that your mind, using your mind to create. that's going to make you get what you get. It's going to make what you get. So look at the state of how we are now. We're not progressive, progressing as far as like helping each other. I mean, we in a sense we do, but I'm just saying, in the whole system of everything. I'm just saying, it's yeah. I mean, there's always going to be bad stuff, and we can't control everything. A flood comes, wash everything away, whatever. But I'm talking about the overall understanding of humankind can make itself into something that is really, really conducive towards everyone having a bit of contentment and love and compassion for the other guy, the other girl, the other whatever, because just the fact that we recognize that that's a good way. The other ways of the ego are not as good as that way, as the way that I'm talking about. They're not as good. They're not as good. They're not normal. They're not normal. Normal is what you make normal. So if you want to make something that's better for you normal, then that becomes the new normal. And that would make more sense. To make something better for yourself, make that be normal. Now, have that be normal. That's the new normal. That's much better. That's the way that we should be thinking. Because we're not animals. We're not supposed to be informing ourselves by what's going on in the animal kingdom. That's there for our observation. Just like everything else is there for us, for our observation. Just like the plant kingdom, the insect kingdom, the mineral kingdom, the elemental kingdom, the stars, the planets, the space, the atoms, the quarks, everything is there for our observation. Everything is there for us. Everything's there for us. And we have the ability to access it, the information from these things, and to decipher it. And to decipher it. Accessing information is a wonderful ability. It makes life so exciting for all of us in the human kingdom. But why are we squandering the ability that we have to make things much better for us as a species, as a human species? We're squandering that ability. And understanding what in a rational way that we should be doing with the actual planet that we live on, the actual home that is our home. Sure, we could observe Mars and build a rocket ship that goes to Mars, and we can figure out how to maybe change the atmosphere of Mars. But does that mean that we have to not even figure out what we're supposed to do with the Earth and make this well, if things go bad here, we can just go to Mars. What kind of sense is that? Your mind is great. The mind is tremendous. And together with our minds, we could do anything that we need to do right here on this home that we have. And then from there, we can go anyplace else. Let's take care of our species and our home. Everything first. Let's do that first. If we do that first, then we have a great basis to do the other stuff. But we got to figure out how to do this first. And we have the ability to do that because we're not animals. So we have the ability to do that. We don't have to be informed by the animal kingdom on how to do everything or anything, actually, if we don't want to. First, let's inform ourselves what we should be doing as humans in the human kingdom. That's what we have to understand that we are. See, we're not animals. We're humans. Okay? Let's use what we have as humans in the human kingdom and look up, look up. It's ahead towards the next kingdom. Not try to inform ourselves with down underneath us, with the kingdom beneath us. We need to inform ourselves by what is spiritual. Spiritual. That's why when I'm talking about the next kingdom as being divine, is because it's more spiritual. Spiritual just means that it's understanding that we're headed somewhere. There's a purpose that to everything that's going on here, and we're headed somewhere. And then we're headed in an evolutionary way towards the next kingdom. We all are part of God anyway. We're just manifesting what God is ever and ever and ever and ever more and more strongly, more understandingly, more perceptively. We're going to be that God that we are seeking. Yeah, we're headed there to be that God. We're already part of it anyway, so we can't help but head there because that's what evolution is. So if we're looking towards the spirit and looking towards the line that we're taking towards spirituality, towards the God that we're looking for outside of ourselves, which we actually are. If you want to try to say it's outside, okay, fine, say it's outside, doesn't matter. Yeah, it's outside, and it was still a part of it. So therefore, we're part of God. So it's outside, it's inside, and we're headed in that evolutionary path that is taking us ever closer to that actual understanding of what that is. That's why the animals don't have that ability that they have, because they're in a different kingdom. We're in the kingdom that is closer to that God that we're supposed to be looking for. And we're starting to realize in our individual state that we are now in, and understanding that there's something outside of ourselves that we are going towards. We're starting to finally get that little inkling, little peek under the veil. And we're starting to say, oh, you know what? So what we're looking for is us. That's what we're looking for. We're not, not looking for something else than other than what we are. All we have to do is be ever more of that which we are. See, that's what's separating us from what the animals are. That's understanding and that ability to develop that understanding and to develop it to a point that we are now no longer in conflict with ourselves, because we understand that there is no such thing as conflict with yourself. How can you be in conflict with yourself when you are all that there is? Once you do have to realize that, and now you're no longer in conflict with yourself. Now I can be in the flow of everything. Now I can be unified with everything because I have that understanding now. Now I don't have to look at something else outside myself and see a difference. I can look at this outside myself and see that I am that, and that is me. And therefore, now my feelings towards that is totally different than what I had before when I was just using my ego. That ego was another form of that separation into that reality of the individual personage. That's all it is, That, manifesting yourself in that personage, then you have to have an ego, because the first that you get first, that's what you come out with. So you have to understand, you have to defend yourself, and then figure out how to survive and all this. That's the ego does that. But then you should be able to get around to that next step, and that next step is what we're trying to get a little bit more of understanding of. And so through what the things I'm talking about here, uh, we should have the motivation to actually want to be there. you know, because that's what paradise is. That's what heaven is. See, see, you want to get to something that's higher, knowing that we are able to do that. We are beings that are doing it, and all we have to do is realize ever more how we are doing that. The faster we realize that, the faster we will go towards getting to it. So, like I said, I'm giving you an example of the Buddha. The Buddha did it in one lifetime. He accelerated himself. He accelerated himself in one lifetime to being almost a pure spirit. I use Buddha a lot. Then I use Jesus, because it's different kind of concept of how that whole thing was developed. So it's sometimes easier in many cases to use the Buddha, because there's nothing in the way of it's really the same, but it's just like, oh, that's the son of Mr. God. Yeah, uh, that's why I hear me say Buddha a lot. So basically, that's the point that I'm trying to make about why we are not animals. And I think that we said enough about this. So it's time to go on to the next chapter.